Hey everyone. Now, for some of you that pay attention to my channel or do subscribe to my channel, I do appreciate it. You might recall that back in August of 2014, around the time for the 30th anniversary of the franchise, I talked about an arc called the Forever War. It is a TMNT adventures arc, story arc that was supposed to take place after the Moon Eye saga in the Archie Comics adaptation of the Ninja Turtles. Unfortunately, due to behind the scenes reasons, which I'm pretty sure a lot of us now who are subscribed to the Sonic comic or fans of the Sonic comic kind of understand, the Forever War did not take place. Instead, we got a two-part finale origin of how the Turtles around the ages of 9 or 10 got the weapons and mask. Yeah. Instead of getting the five-part Forever War story that we were hoping to get, we instead got a two-part finale based on the origin of how the Turtles got the mask and weapons. And then the following year, we got a three-part revival or attempt at a revival by Archie Comics called The Year of the Turtle, and that didn't go anywhere. So what happened to the Forever War? What caused this potentially five-part epic finale of the comic to come to an end? Because when one thinks about it, you take a look at the fact that it's five parts and it starts in issue 71. It was supposed to end in issue 75. So what initially happened? Well, Steve Murphy and Chris Allen, who were the creators of the Ninjara character, who became an initial part of the team officially in issue 29. I mean, she made her debut in the final panel of issue 28 and became an official part of the team around issue 29 and issue 30. She was created to, I guess, add another female member to the group besides April and her camera lady friend at the time. But as well as, I guess, explore an avenue that had not been explored yet with the Ninja Turtles at that time, except if you watch the cartoon series and you watch the season 4 episode, Raphael Meets His Match, where we meet Mona Lisa. In the comic, we had never really experienced anything like that, or initially experienced it to the point that the Turtles had a girlfriend or love interest of any kind. And Ninjara was created to become Raphael's love interest. I guess you could say his balancing that he needed. And she lasted initially from her debut in at the end of issue 28, and then her full reveal or introduction throughout 29 and 30. She initially was around for almost 40 to 41 issues. Well, not 41, but 40, for about 41 to 42 issues, which isn't bad. She was part of the team in their 50th anniversary issue. She took part in several 48-page monthly spin-offs, at times one dedicated to both her and Raphael. So, she did a lot. She was part of the Mutant Animals crossover, and originally, long story short, she was supposed to be part of the Mutant Animals cartoon series, had that taken off, which it didn't. So, yeah, she was created by them. Now, the reason I bring her up is because she was supposed to come back. Now, hear me out when I say come back. She was supposed to come back in one of the issues of the Forever War series. The reason I say come back is because the Moon Eye saga that preceded this was a four-issue saga that ended in issue 70. 70, 69, 68, 67. It started in issue 67. And continuity-wise, this kind of plays off of what future Raphael, future Raph, tells his younger self after in a prelude to the Future Shark trilogy. That's what it's called, the Future Shark trilogy, I believe. Um, uh, anyway, let me hold on for a sec. Well, yeah, basically the Future Shark trilogy, which introduced us to the future turtles, the turtles of the future, as well as Armagon, that we also saw his representation in the new TMNT series on Nickelodeon. Now, again, like I said, she was supposed to come back in the future the Forever War saga. I would assume around the second or third issue, because in the Moon Eye saga, and this is spoilers for nobody that's read it yet, that's basically that 4-part saga is basically the finale to the Raphael Ninjara relationship, and it's basically was not intended, but ended up being the finale of Ninjara's appearance in the comic and being part of the team. Because what happened was she ended up, from a continuity standpoint, because Steve Murphy, Chris Allen, when they went and revisited the TMNT universe, although not acknowledging it in two back-to-back issues uh, of Radio Comics Furlong comic book series, it is indicated that she married the new character that was introduced in the Moon Eye saga called Mokoshan, who is like another humanoid fox creature like herself. She marries him and they end up having a daughter. So because of that, she basically, like I said, because of that, Moon Eyes ended up being her finale, if not unintentionally, it became her finale in the book. Now, I think Steve Murphy and Chris Allen knew they were going to she was going to come back, and that the Forever War was going to be that way of bringing her back. Now, the reason Forever War never took place, and I'm reading off here off the link I'll provide below, which is the TMNT entity.blogspot.com. Um, uh, basically explains in their article, and they even have a little bit of an interview that Steve Murphy discussed on his original blog site called The Fifth Turtle, as well as in several interviews. But they do ask the same question of what happened to the intended finale, the Forever War. Now, um, according to what we read here on the blog here, what happened was managerial politics. Basically, what it says here is Steve Murphy, like I mentioned in his Fifth Turtle blog, defunct blog now, but his Fifth Turtle blog at the time, he discussed at full length the situation he was placed in during the last few years of TMNT adventures. That he was caught between his own creative desire to tell more challenging stories and Archie managing editor Victor Golik's decree that the title be lighter and more fun. And this is what they quote from Steve Murphy. This is what they quote from Steve Murphy. And I quote, this is from Steve Murphy. He says, This is what Steve Murphy says, and I quote, I had just finished work on the Moon Eye Saga story arc, TMNT 60, TMNT-A, Ninja Turtles Adventures 67 to issue 70, the four-part unintentional um, finale for Ninjara, wherein Raphael travels to Alaska seeking the love of his life, Ninjara, only to romantically lose her to another. It was heavy stuff for a kid's book, at least by the standards of the day. And I was once again at odds with the two bigwigs at Archie Comics, editor-in-chief Victor Golick and publisher Michael Silverberg, Michael Silverberg, or basically the editor-in-chief Victor Golick and the publisher at the time for Archie Comics, both whom thought we were going too far in terms of adult themes. Both men, as well as the distributing guy, Fred Mazer, had been on my butt, or as he puts it, ass, about this several times before. Most heatedly when we put out the first Future Turtles story arc, wherein Chris and I developed the character of Hitler's brain, but that's another story. He continues on, and I quote what they got here from Steve Murphy. Victor and Michael, who was the publisher at the time, wanted to know where the book was going with issue 71. And when I told them we would be revisiting the future, the greenhouse, paraphrase, the greenhouse Earth future, another notion which freaked them out, for a 5-issue story arc featuring the return of the Shredder, a total narration Shredder, basically a total annihilation Shredder, not the buffoon of the cartoon, they popped due toupees. And they said they wanted me off the book. Now that's so far what they got from him, and he's got more to say in a minute, but hold on. Now the blog goes on to explain that the heated attitudes between Mirage and Archie extended more than just Golick's disapproval of Murphy's storytelling. Mirage at this time decided to switch to color for their TMNT comics, which left Archie Comics feeling threatened. And as colorized TMNT books were previously their exclusive domain. Now Murphy elaborates. Now, Murphy does, after they mention this, they do get more quotes from Murphy and what he said before on his blog. And they quote Steve Murphy as well as I do. A few months earlier, Mirage began the second volume of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic book series, deciding in an inadvertent sustained logic that the greatly added expense of printing in color would boost the sagging sales and increasing losses of the first volume series. This, of course, was new ground, a territory previously owned by the TMNT Adventures title, but more so by Archie Comics, who had the exclusive right to print in color for newsstand distribution. Continuing on what Steve Murphy said, and I quote, not that Mirage was going newsstand with Volume 2, but it was entering the direct sales market with a color title. The big enchiladas at Archie Comics didn't like this, as they too had their eyes on the direct sales market since they were going through an across-the-board decline in newsstand sales as the number of children reading comics plummeted with the increased competition from video games. They were secretly making plans for a more direct-to-sales oriented Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Adventures comic. Plans that did not involve me or anybody else at Mirage. Now, that's what he said so far. Now, here's what the rest of the article kind of mentions. The rest of the article mentions that the combination of Archie's aggressive disapproval of Murphy's storytelling and what Murphy perceived as total indifference to his circumstances from Mirage founder Peter Laird eventually led Murphy to quit the title and pursue other projects away from both companies for the next 5 years, not returning to Mirage until 2001. It said Archie would get its creative control over TMNT Adventures, but only for a total of 5 issues. TMNT A 71 to 72 and The Year of the Turtles, issue 1 to 3, before calling it quits on the whole thing. The article goes on to say that Murphy and Allen's only return, quote-unquote return, to that universe of characters would occur in November of 1996, where the 3-issue arc, I guess it was 3, not 2, issue arc, in the furry marketed magazine Furlog, featuring the joint-owned character Ninjara. The story took place in the future of TMNT Adventures, though outside an advertisement of Ninjara declaring, "I'm not hanging with teenagers anymore." No references to the Turtles were ever made for obvious legal reasons. The story arc ended on a cliffhanger and was never completed due to lack of interest from both writer and artist. Now the article goes on to say about that, but what goes on to ask the question, but what was the Forever War? Now, it goes on to explain that in a June 9, 2008 interview with Newsarama's Benjamin Ong-Pang-King, OPK, Murphy described it cryptically as both, quote-unquote, quote, just the next story arc in the TMNT Adventures title, and, quote-unquote, another future Turtles hookup with today's Turtles story arc, one that features the final battle with Shredder. Aside from that, we don't really know much else about the actual contents of the story arc, save what we could glean on our own from the 5 penciled and inked covers released by artist Chris Allen. And they do provide the pictures there. It says, as you can see, the arc would have boasted a pretty wide selection of enemies and allies from the length of TMNT Adventures. It was later revealed that the script, pencils, and rough lettering for TMNT Adventure 71, The Forever War Part 1, had been completed, while rough scripting and pencilings had been completed for TMNT's Adventures 72, which would have been Part 2 of Forever War, before Victor Golick terminated the storyline in Murphy and Allen's employment. To date, only the first 6 penciled and rough lettered pages of TMNT Adventure 71 have been released to the public. And they show these. Now the article continues that by the turn of the century, the future of the Forever War would proceed to go on something of a roller coaster ride in regards to Mirage's intent to see it completed and published, with more promises made and broken than any fan cares to keep track of. In the letter pages of Tales of the TMNT Volume 2, Number 7, published in 2005 of January, Steve Murphy suggested that fans get ready because the Forever War would be out by the end of the year. 2005 became 2006, and still no Forever War. Then in the letter pages of issue 16 of Volume 2 of Tales of the TMNT, Mirage officially announced that Murphy and Allen had been signed to complete the Forever War in a 5-issue miniseries as part of their 25th anniversary celebration. An advertisement for the miniseries appeared in Tales of TMNT number 58. In a trade paperback collection of relevant TMNT adventures issued TMNT Future Tense was published in 2009 as a as a primary for the miniseries. Solicits claimed all issues featured the future totals and act as a lead-in to the upcoming all-new Forever War miniseries. A hefty section of the aforementioned Newsarama interview focused on Murphy's plans for the Forever War and what changes would be made from the original scripts and plot concepts. This is Newsarama quoting Steve Murphy in their interview with him. And he says, quote, "The current plan is to release it as a monthly black and white story arc under the original Archie Comics Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Adventures title. The first issue would come out in May of 2009. It will have many elements of the original storyline, while at the same time cutting down the cast a bit. The scenes depicted on the 5 covers will not necessarily be occurring in the revamped storyline." Now the article and now that was Steve Murphy being quoted by Newsarama. Now the article goes on to say that while this was going on, Chris Allen was hard at work preparing for the miniseries. In addition to the promotional art and future tense cover already shown, Allen also drew primarily thumbnails for 5 new interlocking covers. When May 2009 rolled around, the book was still not on the shelves. Solicits from Dan Berger, published in the letter pages of TMNT Volume 4, Issue 30 of the same month and year, advertised the future tense trade, but contained this disappointing nugget. Nugget which said, and I quote, "The book introduces the Forever War 3-issue miniseries and will be released in July. Yes, 3 issues." So evidently, in addition to all the delays, the miniseries was scaled back from 5 issues to 3. There was also a solicitation for the Forever War miniseries. Quote, "Forever War miniseries, featuring all new material by Callan and Allen, will begin shipping in October with issue 1. 2 ships in November, 3 in December." However, the book did not materialize on any of its updated release dates. By 2009's end, the much promised and much hyped Forever War never happened. At all. In the end, the culprit responsible for the second demise of the Forever War was Peter Laird himself. His sale of TMNT's franchise to the Viacom Corporation in December of that year pulled the rug out from under the Forever War project, as the deal did not grant Mirage license to publish any stories not taking place within the Mirage universe, though Laird retained the right to publish up to 18 Mirage TMNT stories a year. In addition to the Forever War, other projects such as the Mirage Universe sourcebook were unceremoniously cancelled after solicitations had been made and much of the work had been completed. And that brings us to today, which was which I guess was a few years ago. And that brings us to today. What has become of the Forever War? Well, Viacom has licensed the TMNT catalog to comics publisher IDW for reprint purposes, as well as a license to produce all new material. The first new title is due out at the end of the summer, and the first reprint collection of Mirage's TMNT Volume 1 material is due out in early fall, so this has to be around 2010-2011. Through the message boards, IDW editors and creators have shown an open interest in dialogues with fans, particularly in what they'd like to see in the TMNT comics. Naturally, discussion about the Forever War has cropped up through IDW, though IDW has no plans at the time of this writing to pursue any Archie material. But consider that IDW resurrected Marvel's original G.I. Joe title last year, with the original numbering continued and tapping the original author of the series. Also consider that next year IDW will be resurrecting Marvel's original Transformers title, with the original numbering continued and tapping the original author and artist of the series. If anyone is willing to listen to a fan demand and resurrect an old series from the 90s, it's IDW. So if you'd like to see the Forever War, make your voice heard in either this thread or the official message board, or by contacting them directly at letters@iwpublishing.com. Okay, I know that took forever and I do apologize, but basically what this article is getting at here is the fact, and hopefully I'll get some pictures up for you to see. Basically, the Forever War was supposed to originally be a 5-part finale to the TMNT Adventures comic. Basically, the comic was coming to an end, and the original finale for it was going to be a 5-part miniseries, bringing everybody that's been involved and in contact with the Turtles, with Shredder, back into play for this comic. And the Shredder we were going to get was not the "I want to conquer Earth" Shredder. No, it was going to be basically a badass Shredder that took no crap from anybody, and obviously was very total annihilation Shredder is what we got, or what we were going to get. And my thoughts on it, folks, is I even though it's 2016, and yes, we have Out of the Shadows coming out next week, I think we're still in a good enough spot right now to where if IDW is willing to listen to the fans, then we can definitely probably see maybe it happening. I just don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon. I do know that a lot of legal issues would have to be worked out for maybe Steve Murphy and Chris Allen to say, okay, you can use Ninjara, but I don't really know if they'd be able to do that either. To me, though, when I first found out about the Forever War, I was surprised, a little shocked. I was thinking, wait a minute, it's supposed to be. I was like, wait a minute, there was supposed to be more, and to find out that it was supposed to be the original finale to the comic series. Just by how it was described of how certain things were going to go down, and the original covers, kind of showing you what it was going to be like. To me, I was like, yeah, I would love to see this. I would love to see this take place. Or I would have loved to seen it. Because it just had so much going on for it. It would have had so much potential and stuff going on for it that I think they could have really capitalized on this. Now, unfortunately, Victor Golick and the higher ups at the time, I guess, didn't really appreciate the fact that Steve Murphy and Chris Allen were trying to make the Turtles comic more appealing to an older audience, and they wanted to keep it more for that younger audience. Well, I think what happened is at the time, while Archie Comics still had the license for TMNT, they also had the license to Sonic the Hedgehog. And what happened was because Sonic the Hedgehog was still kind of lighthearted and funny and meant for kids and all ages, I think they looked at that and they looked at that and they probably thought, hey, we should have that for the Turtles. But I think they forgot. But I think what happened, in my opinion, is not Steve Murphy and Chris Allen, but Victor Golick and those higher ups like his publisher and what have you, just didn't see the difference there. The difference between the Ninja Turtles and the Sonic comic. I don't think they saw the difference. I think they thought, in my opinion, they could have something similar, and they just didn't realize that they were not going to get that here. They were not going to get that here. So overall, I think maybe there was a miscommunication. I mean, they had just acquired the Sonic license, and they were sort of like going into the what was it, 93, 94, almost the third year with the license. And yeah, that comic was getting more mature at times, being aimed at all the older audiences as well, in a sense, being more SatAM like. But it was still, you could still tell it was meant for kids and for all ages. And I think that's what they wanted with the Ninja Turtles. They wanted it to be kind of like what they were getting, but be at that tone where kids can read it, all ages can read it. And I think Steve Murphy and Chris Allen were trying to make them realize, hey, you got that with Sonic. This is going to be a title more for the older fans that have grown up with the Turtles and grown up with the 80s and 90s cartoon. Let it be its own thing. And Victor Golick didn't like it, obviously. Sorry, my finger hit the mic there. I guess he felt maybe it was too mature, which they do say here in the article. They basically felt it was too adult themed. Well, if you're gonna keep comics identified from each other in their own individual way, one comic's gonna be more adult themed. I mean, heck, you have comics out of DC and Marvel you're trying to compete with. You need something that's on that level that's going to compete with them. And I think that's what Murphy and Allen were trying to do. They were trying to create a book with the Ninja Turtle Adventures that was going to compete on the same level as what Marvel and DC had. So overall, I look at it this way. I'm totally on Steve Murphy and Chris Allen's side here. I think they had good intentions originally. And I believe, honestly and hopefully, we will get the Forever War. And I hope those two are a major part in bringing it to life. So, but the Forever War potential that was there, I wouldn't say it's totally lost. I still believe it could be resurrected. We just have to wait and see what IDW says and maybe what Nickelodeon says. But I think Nickelodeon and IDW might go in the direction and give us the Forever War down the line. And I hope it's soon. And you know what? I hope, like I said, Steve Murphy and Chris Allen are a part of it. So I'll provide the link down below. But let me know what you guys think. What are your thoughts on the Forever War? How do you think it would have panned out? How they actually continued it, gone forward with it? And do you think Ninja would have been back as Raphael's love interest when she was going to be originally brought back in Forever War? Let me know down below. Comment if you like.